If you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain, if you're not into yoga, if you have half a brain, if you like making love at midnight in the dunes of the Cape, well, then you are going to enjoy this episode of the Living With Yourself After Show, which starts right now.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
I immediately realized that if I started singing, no one was going to stay tuned into the show. Welcome to Living With Yourself After Show. I am Chistian Bladt, joined once again by Carla Contreras. Nice to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, very long while.
It's been a long time. I'm so glad that we're able to catch up here and talk about episode 7 of Living With Yourself, which is indeed called Pina Colada. I wanted to get sort of a quick overall thoughts of this episode, which does fill in the blanks between episodes 5 and 6. Because at the end of episode 5, we see Kate arriving at the restaurant. Clone Miles is there. And then in episode 6, Kate goes away for a week. Clone Miles is nowhere to be found. It doesn't take much to kind of put together what might have happened, but then we get to see in this episode. So overall thoughts on episode 7.
For the first time this whole season, I'm switching over to Team Miles. The clone officially is giving me the creeps a little bit. Finally, I'm on board with everyone else. And I think you really start to see the holes in the relationship that Kate and Miles have for it to get as far as it has gone.
So you're talking about the relationship Kate and original Miles actually have. Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
And then what she really is searching for in anybody else, it seems, kind of, from her starting that website and trying to find like a match. So it was interesting. I feel for her. I feel for everyone, actually.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely, there's no way to not feel bad for Kate in all of this. You know, I mean, I think even if Miles hadn't cloned himself and brought that complicated other aspect into it, clearly this is a relationship that is not at its strongest, and it seems like it's heading in the wrong direction. And, you know, I think she feels like this is a way, you know, I still love my husband. I think that this might be a way to not betray that love while still maybe trying to find something new. But the first thing we see in the episodes, this episode 7, is Clone Miles buying a bag at like Target or Walmart or somewhere like that, and it's just like the bag that we see over the head of Miles at the end of episode 6. So yeah, I think in that moment it would be very hard to be pro Clone Miles.
Definitely.
But you can see, I mean, we don't even get that much of their interaction. Clone Miles and Kate sitting there catching up, you know, having lunch and walking around. What was going through your mind when you saw Kate walking around with, you know, her husband, but not her husband, this clone version of her husband?
It actually made me ask myself a question. I was like, would she want this attention, let's say, from anybody? Or is it the old Miles that she misses? Like, I don't really know. Like, I don't really know what the answer is to that. I think this is just a woman whose relationship has gone really south, that I think is longing for love and affection. And now that I've heard your perspective on it, I'm kind of on board with you with the fact that she really just wants, she wants to fall back into love with her husband. Yeah. And if she does it with the clone, it's practically the same thing. Yeah. But I think it quickly gets a little complicated because it's not the same person. And even as they're about to like make love, it's very awkward. Like, you can tell that the chemistry is not there, even though he does the right things, he says the right things, he acts in the ways that I think make her happy. I think the chemistry in all of it is not right.
It's very telling that the chemistry is not right because, yes, there is the moment where they sleep together, but then before that, their wedding song plays. And I only really thought about this instance of it in the subsequent episode, but it's important to talk about in this episode. He remembers that it's important. He knows that they have a routine, but they can't really get it together. You know, he kind of knows what the moves are and she knows what the moves are, but he's not doing them right. You know, it's like they're not in sync. It's just that simple. And did you think anything of it when you saw this episode that it didn't quite work? Or what were your thoughts when you saw in episode 7 that he tried to get her to do their wedding dance?
Well, right from the time that they slept together, I could tell that it just wasn't right.
Right.
I mean, TMI, but I feel like once you know your partner, you know where to go, know what ways to ultimately please them. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan, in the booth, yeah.
And she was really guiding him through the process, like, hold my breast, but not like, I forget what she
was very funny, actually.
No,
what
yeah,
she
was
said,
like more like you're touching bread than, I forget what the other comparison was.
Yeah, it was like, she was basically saying like rough, but not too rough. It was like, it's like stuff that actual Miles would know. Yeah, and it's like he has all the memories, but somehow he doesn't know he doesn't have the muscle memory is really what it is. He has memories in his head, but it's almost like he read a book on the life of Miles, or like he watched a reality show that was the life of Miles. He's
trying to mimic it.
And he's just trying to imitate it. He didn't actually experience any of it, even if he feels like he did. And yeah, I think that those two moments, just the fact that they have what seems to be a terrible physical encounter in the bedroom, and then also out on the dance floor doesn't seem to go well for them either.
No, and then when they're at the bar top, it was, right? And he's asking her to go to France with her.
He bought tickets already.
Yeah, and then you can see the uncomfort on her face. And she's already like you can already tell she's not about any of the situation, but then the part of her feels guilty because I feel like it's like, okay, this is what you wanted and now you're getting it and it's still not what you want. And then they get on the dance floor and it doesn't flow. No matter, it seems like the steps are there, but I don't even think she wanted to get up to dance, and then it doesn't flow. And then I love seeing the people around them, their reactions. Like even they knew it wasn't right.
They're just like, this is
weird. What are you doing? But then but I feel like if it was like, if their chemistry was there, if it was like the old Miles, I think it would have been a sweet moment to watch.
Yeah. And we obviously don't want to jump too far ahead, but there is a moment in episode 8 where you realize just how bad this was.
Yes.
Like, in the moment of watching episode 7, you're like, oh, this didn't turn out the way you thought. But I thought it was just more like Kate's just not into it. She's not in that place. And, and he's trying to recapture something. So it's far more complex than that. Before they go away for the weekend, we do get a couple of things. We see her show up at Clone Miles' place with the credenza, which is sort of an interesting gesture to give it to him. But it's also really just an excuse because she wants him to come away with her into the city for the week. Now, when we know from the previous episode, from episode 6, that Clone Miles wasn't showing up in work, and we know that Kate had an event to go to, did you put that together as Original Miles did not put together that necessarily until I think episode 8 that's what happened? But did you assume that they were off together somewhere?
Yeah, definitely. Mainly because when he created the profile, because he really wanted to find a soulmate, I think since he knew he couldn't have Kate, he wanted to find anyone, then they matched together.
Yeah.
I knew from that moment on, like something had to happen, because I had the feeling that he messaged her. Yeah. So that from then on, I was like, okay, they're away together. And he's trying to figure out where he's at. Okay, something's going on. I didn't expect for it to get as far as it did, though. No, yeah,
I did. I was a little surprised that they like went away for a week together, and also that Clone Miles got as carried away as he did, buying the tickets to France. But in the initial interaction of like, hey, let's go away, you see it's sort of this sweet moment of trying to kind of get into the rhythm with Clone Miles. They're sitting in the car together and they don't quite hold hands, but they want to. And then he does the Clone Miles thing of sticking his head out the window like a dog does, which I always think is funny when he does it. And she's like, okay, I guess. But, then they do the thing where it's like, oh, well, we just need one king bed, Mr. and Mrs. Elliot. And, they have the bad sexual encounter that we talked about. And then he goes crazy with, and not crazy in a bad way, like, breakfast in bed. It shouldn't be something that drives you crazy. It's a very sweet gesture. But she's like, I think I'm just going to have coffee, And so that basically the tickets to Paris is sort of like, him starting to get desperate. He's like, oh, this is what I thought that I needed, was like, wow, Kate has chosen me over him. But it doesn't go the way that he thought it would. And, I think that it's interesting to watch Kate's realization that whatever this is between the two of them, it's not what she wanted, and she mentions that the real Miles called her, and like, he didn't even say anything nice, and he was actually kind of mean, but it sort of helped her put it into perspective. And what she says to him is, you, as in the clone, you didn't live through all of our crap. You just have the memories of it. And, he's not angry or bitter or afraid. And she says, I'm all those things. Yeah. So I want to know what you think specifically about Kate saying that her bullshit should make him angry, and the fact that he just doesn't see it that way.
I think it's one of those things that, like, no one likes, like, a pushover. And I feel like that's what he is. And then through that, even though I feel like she likes to blame original Miles for a lot of their issues, she now has, I feel like through looking at the clone Miles, she's come to the conclusion that she's just as bitter about life as old Miles. And none of that's going to go away by trying to replace old Miles with clone Miles. So I think reality just finally set in for her. And I think it also gave her a chance to look within and be like, I'm also part of this problem. It takes two to mess something up, And I feel like, I don't think she ever took, I think until that moment, she never really took accountability for her end of their relationship kind of going sour.
Right. It's definitely both of their faults. I mean, look, it's easy as an outsider to say it's, more original Miles' fault, but it's definitely both of their fault. And that's sort of the thing, is like, Clone Miles isn't the problem. He didn't actually do anything, and she's like, you're too great and too kind. And it's actually just exhausting.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, sort of devastating for
was
Clone Miles.
harsh.
Yeah. What did you think about his little moment where he stormed out of the room? Fine, you'll never see me again, ever again. And then came back like 30 seconds later.
I just think he doesn't know anything else. I think those are one of the moments where you kind of sympathize with him, because he has all these memories of a life that he's supposed to have, that he doesn't know anything outside of that. Like, I don't even think he knows where to begin, like, starting a whole new life, even like for himself or like with somebody else, because he can't let go of these memories. So I feel like he longs for her so badly. And I feel like, did everything at this point to try and make it work. And none of it has worked. So at that point, you're pretty, what is there? You're helpless. What is there to do? And then he ends up coming back. And she kind of explains to him, like, heartbreak sucks, but like, you'll get through it. I don't think he can process that.
Yeah, because, his whole existence from the time that he was essentially born as the clone was just focused on, being a good husband. And he saw what original Miles was doing, and he's like, I can be better than him. I just need my chance with her, and I'm not going to mess it up the way he did. And then just being told, like, no, this isn't going to happen. I don't think he knows what to do. So I think it's funny that he tries to drown his sorrows at TGI Fridays.
Oh my God, yes.
Which, whatever town they're in, is clearly hurting for a good watering hole. He just wants some bourbon and not all the different margaritas. And he ends up with Dan from Miles' office, who apparently has been fired thanks to the success of Clone Miles' hard work and a little bit of work from original Miles, but mostly from Clone Miles. And they go and take the ride, and they take a little road instead of like, because Dan wants to fight him, and he's like, let's just go outside. Let's take this outside. And he's like, let's go for a ride. And then what do you think? What do you think it was like for Dan to be driven out to where the spa was burying basically the murdered original versions that they replaced with the clones, including Dan himself?
I mean, he was definitely creeped out. I was actually kind of surprised that he wasn't more mad to find out that he was the clone.
Yeah.
Because, imagine knowing that, like, you're like that the real you is now dead, and you're just like now like the updated version. That would make me kind of like either scared, mad. It would give me a different reaction. I kind of feel like he was more interested in getting revenge.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, he knew that after he went to the spa that things seemed to be working out better for him, but he didn't know he was a clone, and he certainly didn't know that he was the clone, and that was, I think, the thing that he knew the answer, but he had to ask anyway. There's of course also the funny moment. Is that Tom Brady?
Oh my God, yeah, that was hilarious.
That was because they always managed to find they weave in a little bit of comedy through all of this. And of course, Dan seemingly puts the idea into Clone Miles' head that, hey, you and me are clone buds. If you ever get rid of the geek, we can use your clone powers and hit up the town. And that's when he gets the idea of, he should go out and buy a gun, So that's almost where we end it, because we again see Clone Miles watching original Miles get into the car from the end of episode 6.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that that's the setting where Miles had the bag over his head and he got taken away. Were you surprised that Clone Miles actually wasn't the one? Because it's set up perfectly for him to put the bag over his head.
I was so surprised, but then I was like, well, at least now you don't have to do the dirty work.
Yeah.
But once I saw like the kind of van and everything, I was like, oh, okay. I thought it was going to be the 2 Asian men that ran the spa.
Yeah, that would make sense too, because we've seen that that they basically their business has been ruined by the 2 Mileses, and and then of course he's just like, great, I'm going to just take over. And what I thought was very funny was watching Clone Miles try to make himself look like
old
original
Miles.
Miles.
Yes.
He's just like trying to be less smiley, less happy, a little bit, his hair more messed up. And he was basically, instead of like, hi, honey, I'm home. Hey, and then down to what's for dinner, just sort of the de-escalation of his chipperness. So I thought it was fun, and in that moment at the end of episode 7, what are you thinking might be next? When we see original Miles taken off in the van, and then we see original Miles just walking right into we see Clone Miles walking right into the house.
I thought originally that was the end of old Miles.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is it for him. And I thought they were just going to start a whole new life with Clone Miles, because the way he's like practicing that, he like messes up his hair. He tries to put on the glasses, but they like hurt him too much.
Yeah, because his eyes are too good. Yeah, that's the funny thing, yeah.
So I thought for the following episode, that was just all going to go accordingly, until Kate kind of just got the sense that something was off.
Right. I was sort of expecting that too, like that was going to be the final episode of the season, and that at some point there would be something that she's like, oh, wait, you're not him, but I thought you were. But we will talk about episode 8 in a little bit. But before we go, as a fun little special segment, I did want to talk about the title of the episode is Pina Colada, and Clone Miles does reference Escape, the Pina Colada song by Rupert Holmes, which does play over the end credits of this episode, and as we were talking beforehand, of course, is featured in the film Guardians of the Galaxy. But he is using it, Clone Miles is sort of using it as an explanation for when Kate says, what's going on here? And the reason why he says that the Pina Colada song is basically, it's them, it's because it's a guy and his lady, as he says, you don't even know if they're married, that they feel like their relationship is not going as well as it was. They both decide that they're going to step out on the relationship / marriage, whichever it is, and they both take out, this is the late 70s, so they both take out personal ads, and each of them individually reads it and go like, this person, everything that they say, that's perfect. I like pina coladas. I like getting lost in the rain. Oh, I don't like yoga, which, even back in 1979, there were plenty of us not into yoga. So it's sort of this, it's this very, and then they both come in and they're like, huh, it's you that clearly that I just sort of needed to rediscover my lover. So it comes from they can't be mad at the other one. Like, well, you were going to cheat on me? Well, you're here because you were going to cheat on me. And it's just sort of like a fun, lighthearted revelation that they were actually perfect for each other, but maybe they kind of lost their way a little bit. So I think that this is definitely the Pina Colada song moment in Miles and Kate's relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's, it's a bit of it's a very silly song, and I don't know, it might not be one of the greatest songs ever released, but I did think it was a funny point for him to make, and we were talking before the show about why it factored into it, and a fun little tidbit that I've gotten off of the internet, thanks internet, is that the original lyrics of the song, instead of saying if you like Pina Coladas, were, for film buffs, if you like Humphrey Bogart and Getting Lost in the Rain. A lot less catchy than being the Pina Colada song.
Yeah, definitely.
But it would still be called, I guess, Escape, parentheses, the Humphrey Bogart song. Anyway, just a fun little tidbit. I thought it was a nice touch to play it over the credits. And in a few minutes, we'll be back and we will talk about the finale, episode 8, the series finale, season finale. We don't know. But Carla, until then, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Carla L. Contreras and Twitter at Carla_C.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ, and Thursdays over on the Popcorn Talk Network at 1 p.m. Pacific for Marvel movie news, where, yes, we talk about things like Guardians of the Galaxy and occasionally even the Pina Colada song. But anyway, that's all the time we have for now. We'll see you in a few minutes, whether you're watching live or checking out the archive. Our next episode will be very easy for you to find.
Stay tuned.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principal.